Okay, so I'd like to welcome everybody to our first critical conversation about equity and inclusion. My name is Eric Johnson. I'm a professor of multilingual education. I'm on the Tri-Cities campus. I'm also one of the two associate deans for equity and inclusion in our college and the chair of the Equity and Inclusion Committee. So I'm super excited on behalf of the Equity and Inclusion Committee to introduce our first critical conversation of the year. And we have 4 total. And so you can see tonight we are very fortunate to have this amazing topic from Sara and Sule that they will obviously present and talk about. But having graduate students is a priority of ours. And just to let you know, this is a competitive, it was a competitive application process, and the 4 presentations that were selected are stellar and really stood out. And so you can see we're going to have one per month this semester. Our next one will be in February, right? By Michael Dunn, who is here, which is awesome. And then the third one will be in March, and that's with Tom Salisbury and his co-presenters. And then the final one will be in April by Casey Hildebrand. And so we have a good spread of departments and campuses and academic units. And so it's just a pleasure to run this series for the second year. And this is, I tried to convey to everybody that this is for us to have these conversations. And so it's not a conference presentation. This is a conversation. And so it's really cool. It's an opportunity to ask questions and dig deeper into points that maybe you've experienced that we haven't thought about, right? Whether you're a graduate student, staff, or faculty, and to spark those conversations throughout. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing presenters and let them lead the way. And so,
Okay.
yes, Ada, let me know so go ahead and try to share. If you can't share, I might have to relinquish power from my end, but it should be okay.
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna first start sharing my screen and after that introducing myself. So just see if technology gonna work with us. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some glitches with Zoom always, but everybody's done it enough where I think we're all patient. So don't get nervous
Okay.
if we get some technical.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure that everyone can see my screen and also I'm working with two screens over here. So if once in a while I'm looking away that way, it's just my second screen that I'm looking. Um, So yeah, can you see the first slide of our presentation? Yeah, good. Okay. So hi everyone, I'm Zahra, and our presentation is about global voices and local impacts, which we try to shed light on how we can foster inclusion for international students in our classrooms, on our campuses, and maybe we have colleagues that they're coming from different countries. Um, so yeah, that's the whole purpose of this webinar. Okay, yeah. Um, so I'm gonna start introducing myself, but the thing is, I don't know why I don't see my notes. I on like because I have notes on my presentation. Eric, can you help me with that? I don't know why, but in the test run that we did, I could see them. I don't know why I don't see them now.
You're way more organized than I am, and I teach on Zoom almost every semester. Like if anybody else knows how to show notes, that'd be great. But I think that you've prepped quite a bit, and if you can't see them, that's okay. You can work your way through it.
I
Okay,
think
so
I
is
can see them from my end. If you go back to the original PowerPoint, they're there.
okay, so I think I have to like stop sharing and see if I can get them back. Or why
Hey,
not? Let me
like I
see.
said, it isn't a conference presentation. This is a conversation. So it's
Yeah, I
low
know.
stress. Everybody here has had Zoom issues, so we're okay.
Okay, let me see. No, my notes are not coming back.
It looks like you're using a PDF instead of slides.
It's
Oh,
not a
maybe it's Google
PDF.
Slides.
It's not a PDF and it's not a Google slide. Let me try something else. It's just interesting.
Well, you know what's cool is the first slide is presenting yourself, and so you shouldn't need too many notes on that.
Oh yeah, okay. I can do that. There is no notes on that actually, so but yes. Okay. So I'm just gonna go with it and see if I can get my notes back later. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm Zahra Khodaverdi. I'm from Iran, from capital of Iran, Tehran, and it is famous for being called 72 nation city. And that's because like it's just a phrase, but that's because we're getting like so many different diverse backgrounds and people from all around the country, and also like even different countries. They're coming to Tehran, they live there, they work there. So that was a very fascinating phrase that I wanted to bring it here and say that that's where I'm coming from. It's a very huge city, and like 12 million people are living together in that city. So crowded, busy, but yeah. So I I got my bachelor's and master's degree back in Iran. I've been in education for so many years. My bachelor is in elementary education, and my master's is in early childhood education. Um, I work K-12, and right now I'm a third year, a PhD student in cultural studies and social thought in education. And that's an honor that I've been teaching for over 10 years now. Oh God, I feel old, but but yeah, it's been 10 years. I started teaching so young, so that's why. And some of my research interests and my research focus is on colorism and its origin in Iranian context. And I also like to study and write about student-led social movements and the role of students in social changes in Iran. And my passion is has always been about like gender and feminism in Iran, and how gender and education intersect. Um, so yeah, that's about me. And I'm so glad to be here, and thank you for making the time tonight.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for being here, and I hope we get to share a lot of good conversations. So my name is Zuli, um, and my full name is supposed to be Zuleha, and the middle name is Riziki. And so the reason why I usually insist on having my middle name, because my middle name is basically my cultural name. So it has a lot of cultural meaning to it. So most of the time, I don't I feel like when I have to write my name with the middle as an initial, it's like I'm minimizing part of my identity. And so I'm a fourth year doctoral student in cultural studies and social thought in education too. And I'm a mother of two, and I'm from Kenya. I just realized I had my identity. Instead of saying I'm Kenyan first, I said I'm a mother first. So uh, I'm a mother of two. I have an 11-year-old and a 2-year-old. So that's an interesting age gap. And I have over 7-year experience teaching high schools. And I used to teach in Kenya high school before I came here, and I taught English as a second language. And when I came here, I came in as a Fulbright scholar, and I was a Fulbright foreign language teaching assistant at the University of Oregon, where I did my Fulbright scholarship, and then I came here in 2021. I love music, I love dancing, I love traveling, and my favorite food is pilau and chapati. And my research interests are race-conscious care in education, teacher preparation and educational policies. Also look at the intersectionality of gender and culture, especially how it plays out in education. I've also done several things about international students, including this one. I also look at African immigrants and education, how that plays out here in the US. Also try to represent African women voices and being culturally responsive in education or culturally sustaining in education. So basically, that's what I do. Sarah?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Zuli. Sorry, I was still working on the notes thing, but I'm back now. Okay. So the next thing that we would like to do is because we want us all to get to know each other, is that we're gonna create some breakout rooms and in the small groups, 3 or 4, and we would like everyone just get to know each other, introduce themselves to each other, and yeah, and just these are some suggested questions, but you can talk about whatever you like. So also we want to know that why you decided to join this webinar, and your name, your pronouns, your profession, and so yeah. Okay. So Eric, can you help us with like creating the breakout rooms and start from that?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I do with my classes is I have students take a just a picture with their phone of the prompts. And so when you get into the breakout rooms, you remember. So why doesn't everybody go ahead and take a picture of the prompts?
And I will also share the prompts like in the chat, just for more convenient in case, because I sometimes participants just lose access to the main meeting.
Perfect. Okay. I think if you. Okay. Awesome. So why don't we go ahead and give 3 minutes for that. Does that sound okay? Perfect. All right. We'll see you in 3 minutes. Okay, I hope that's enough time. I wanted to join, but I need to stay out in case other people have problems. And was that enough time, Sarah? Suli?
I would say maybe not quite enough because
Yeah, no
yeah,
problem.
no, not everyone could like get a chance just to introduce themselves, but
No, we can hop in for another couple minutes. Okay.
I
Yeah.
think sounds good if everyone agrees on that.
Yeah. It's better that we get to know each other at the beginning. So, all right.
Thank you.
And so I'll do 4 more minutes. And then if there's something else that if somebody finishes, you can always contribute. So, okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. So a lot of bouncing microphones, and so that was good.
So thank you all. I hope that was enough time for everyone just to get it started and get to know each other. So we're gonna keep moving. And so this is the agenda of our presentation. These are the steps that we're gonna take, like get during the presentation. And
Sarah, you need to share.
sorry.
Share your
Oh,
screen.
I'm not sharing. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Thank you
don't
for
worry,
letting
that
me know.
happens to me every class.
I thought that everything's gonna get back to normal when we get back to the main session. So yeah, so this is our agenda. Um, so yeah, we're gonna go over it. So the first thing that we're gonna start isn't just an introduction to the topic and just jump into the webinar's purpose and why we're doing this. Just to do that, we're gonna play a very short video on what it takes to be an international student, because today we're gonna try to look at the world from the eyes of international students. However, it's almost impossible to do that. We're gonna try just to see that how it feels and what it takes to be an international student. So I'm just
So
gonna
Sarah, is this a video?
yeah, this is a video.
Okay, cool. So what you're gonna want to do is stop sharing
Oh, okay, I can do that.
and
All
then
right.
now hit share. And when you do that, in that box that comes up for choosing a screen, there's also a little option for share sound. And that way we will hear the sound versus it just echoing. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I've screwed that up many times, don't worry.
Oh my God, that's great to know. I didn't know that. Okay.
And here's your passport. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a pleasant flight. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Next. Passport, please. Could you put your luggage on the scale, please? I'm sorry, sir, but I'm afraid you might have a bit of an overweight suitcase. You can leave something here, or pay $10 billion.
I'll try to take something out. I don't think there is anything I can leave behind.
How about your parents?
My parents?
Yeah.
Okay.
And your best childhood friend? Your favorite food? The places you like to go?
What about my religion?
You can keep it partly, but keep it on the down low. Now, your language. And your humor that doesn't translate well. Now, could you put your luggage on the scale, please? Great. Here's your passport. Have a nice trip.
So yeah, can everyone hear me? Yep. Okay. So that was just to get us to start to think about like what is the start in the beginning of being an or becoming an international student and what they have to leave behind and what they have to take with them to the new country that they're going. So whenever I watch this video, it just moves me. Uh, it just brings my memories back when I had to get on the flight and coming to the United States. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the next slide, and I'm gonna give the mic to Zuli.
Yeah, so I will just go to the logistics that first who's an international student, and an international student, they just non-immigrants who come to a country to study or to be an exchange to be an exchange student. So most of the time, international students are categorized into two. There is an F1 student. The F1 student, this is the one who just comes to just study, like do a full course of academic or professional study. And the F1, they can come with their partner or their kids. So if you come in with your partner and your kids, they come in as an F2. And the F2, they cannot work, they cannot do anything. So they just under the shadow of the F1. And so the second one is the M1, and this is also another non-immigrant. And they come to pursue like a vocational or any other kind of recognized non-academic institution. And if the M1 non-immigrant student comes into you here, they can come in with their partner, and that will be M2 with their kids, same place, M2. And then, so in the United States, international students are usually on temporary visas, and they're not immigrants. So they're not immigrants, they're like immigrants are the permanent residents who have like a green card, who can even work at McDonald's and stuff like that. So we are on temporary visas, and sometimes we have to go back to our countries during our study time to renew our visas. And so they're also not, I hate to use the word illegal immigrants. And they're also not refugees. Refugees are the ones who leave their countries because of specific reasons. So the last category of students we call the exchange visitors, and they enter with a J1 visa. And the J1 visa, it's usually they are approved to participate in work and study-based exchange programs. Like when I came to US the first time, I came on J1 visa, so I came as an exchange student. And sometimes the J1 and immigrants, they're usually sponsored by an organization that's designated by the Department of State. For example, like in my Fulbright scholarship, I was being sponsored by the International Education Institute. So most of the time, sometimes the J1, they are not allowed to come in with their kids and their partner. It's just they sometimes come just by themselves. But we have some that you are allowed to come in with your entire family. So sometimes you can have people in your department who just come in for just 1 year, and they come with everyone, and then after 1 year they're gone. So most of the time they're usually on J1 visa. So the reason why we had to start with a different type of visas as international students have, is because each visa has its own pros and cons. Like I mentioned, an F1, they can only work in school, and they're only allowed to work like 20 hours. You can't do more than 20 hours, and you cannot work anywhere outside the college that you're studying. Like you cannot, like, for example, here in WSU, I'm a student here in WSU, I cannot work anywhere outside WSU. And if I have to, it's a due process. I have to apply for something called maybe an OPT or OPT so that I'm allowed to work outside and it still counts towards my internship. And so it's limited. You can't work outside. So that means that the amount of money you make is also limited. And next slide, please. And so why do we have to come to look for these opportunities? So there are two reasons why students come to study abroad. We categorize them into two. We have the push factors and we have the pull factors. So the push factors, they cause students to look for educational opportunities abroad due to, like, for example, if you come from a country that has limited access to education, or maybe there are political or socio-economic forces that in your country that limit you from having a good education. And then you also have pull factors. And the pull factors, they are the fact that for example, the education in US is highly valuable. So there's the perception that the country that we come to has high quality education, and you're feeling like when you get a degree from the US, when you go back to your home country, you'll be more marketable, you'll be able to get bigger job opportunities, and maybe you're thinking of doing more things for your home country. So those are the pull factors. Sarah?
Thank you, Zuli. The next step that we're going to take is going to be a detailed exploration of international students' challenges and some inclusion strategies that we can use. We're going to start with another breakout rooms sessions here. So we have 3 scenarios, and we would like all participants just to discuss how they would approach these scenarios regarding like international students. And they are all, the scenarios are all international students. So we're gonna go back to the breakout rooms and discuss and see how we're gonna approach this before we're giving you any further information. And at the end, we would like you just reflect and say that how your approach and your point of view has changed. So Eric, could you please
Sure. So that you have 3 scenarios. Do you think 10 minutes would be enough?
Yeah, I believe 10 minutes is going to be good. And I also shared the document to the scenarios in case that it's going to be
Awesome.
needed in the chats. Yeah.
Yeah, just in case. Participants might want to take a quick picture, but okay, let me put 10 minutes in there. Okay, we'll see you soon.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope everyone could have a nice talk, and just these problems were just to make us to think about like what are some of the situations and conditions that international students may go through, and they have to like adapt themselves with those situations. Okay, so we're gonna move to the next part. So I'm gonna start with like why we should care, and why would we even bother like talk about international students' experiences, and why is it important? So as we know that the number of international students is increasing in the United States, especially in higher ed. So we're getting more and more international students, but we have limited knowledge and programs on how create a safe space for these students to thrive. So the institutional bases usually are not fully ready to foster an inclusive environment for our international students. And unfortunately, universities usually see international students as lacking knowledge, language, and sometimes not being cultured, which can be like a like a good discussion to know that what does it mean not being cultured and what culture we're talking about. But this is why this topic really matters. And also the discrimination that international students are facing every day on university campuses because of their like marginalized identity just pushes us to learn more about like how we can foster that inclusive environment for them. So the next thing that I would like us to think about are some of the challenges that international students they have to face every day. So international students often face linguistic and academic barriers, including like learning so many language skills for employment and difficulty adapting to the host country academic norms. And this is the first and most common challenge that these students face, but this is not the only one. So other challenges are social withdrawal due to a lack of confidence in speaking in English and limited intercultural interactions between domestic and international students. And also, the other challenge is overlooked intersectionality of international students, which we're going to talk about each challenge, and I will also offer some strategies. Okay, just to do that, I'm gonna I need to like do an introduction here before starting this slide. I would need your participate here, and I would like you all help me to get through this slide. This is just an experiment for all of us to kind of experience the feeling of being an international student. So I can see among the participants that there are some Iranians that they are Farsi speakers. So yeah, because I'm gonna have some Farsi words here, so please please do not say the words and stuff. But also I can see some of my students here. I use this example in my classes when I teach. So a spoiler alert, so you're gonna know this. So I'm gonna start, and I would ask you all to try to read these words. These are 3 words. Can anyone read this for me except Farsi speakers?
I can do that. I'm not a Farsi speaker, but
Oh, cool.
I think I can.
You can read them?
Zara,
Okay.
Salam, Ishq.
Thank you. Thank you for reading them, Maliha. Okay, I'm gonna ask Eric. Eric, can you read them? Because you're here to help us, so.
If I can read them, well, I know the direction to read them, but I cannot decode those. If
Okay.
they were in Spanish or, Portuguese, maybe.
Okay. So how it feels when you can, like, there are some words that you cannot read them.
Well, there are
I'm
two.
asking you to read them.
Yeah, there are 2 factors, right? Like, I don't read, it appears Arabic script, so that's a huge, barrier for me. And then I just interacting with other Arabic speakers, I know you read right to left, but it still doesn't do me any good. And I can't like Google Translate them because it's on the screen. It's not in a format that I could copy paste into Google Translate. So there are all sorts of challenges that are faced when trying to decode a script in a language that you don't know.
Yeah, and you don't relate to this language.
No.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you. Thank you for the help. So what about now? Can you read this?
I could read salam, and
Mhm.
I with the consonant cluster at the end of the second word, I would not know how to pronounce it. I would just use my knowledge of English literacy, and I would say something like eshka.
Mhm. Yeah. So do you know the meaning of these words that you can read now?
Well, salam, I know salam alaikum, alaikum assalam, right?
Mhm.
And so those are greetings, and salam is has religious connotations. In my experience, I don't know exactly what that word means though.
Mhm.
It could have multiple
But yeah, exactly. So it kind of got easier just because like you know a little bit of the context and you can at least read them, not necessarily know the meaning.
Absolutely. Well, it's in a writing system that I am accustomed to.
Thank you. So what about now?
Zahra, hello, and love, because they've been translated. Well, I mean, the name,
Mhm.
I know, I just seeing your name, I don't know if that means something else though. And a lot of times, names are derived from something
Mhm.
else, a noun or whatever, adjective or verb or something. But now, that first one, I don't know. But obviously, the next two have been translated into English, so it makes it a lot easier.
Yes. So thank you. Thank you, Eric, for helping me doing this slide. So the thing is, this example, I didn't put this slide here, just to say that this is how international students feel about English language, because they usually have enough knowledge about English and they know how to read, speak, and write in English. But it is intended just to show us how it feels when someone experiences language barriers. And when we expect our students, whether like they're international students or not, to to thrive with the information that they do not relate to. So they come with a full body of knowledge and experiences that are not validated in Western academia, and that is how they feel. They do not belong here. They don't get that sense of belonging, and this is how language barrier feels and look like. So so as I said earlier, language proficiency remains a significant challenge for international students, and students often struggle with academic jargon, understanding lectures, and contributing to group discussions. And also academic norms and expectations, such as essay structure and participation styles, usually differ from those in their home countries. So they have to adapt with all of those. And also the other thing that brings language barriers and cultural adaptation for international students is that usually international students are approached with a Western point of view, and that just makes it so difficult for them. So if you look at the history and the notion of university and academia, especially in the West, like we can see and we realize that this institution was designed to exclude people, not include people. It was designed to separate the elite from the ordinary. So the United States is no exception from this notion. So being in academia in the United States means knowing very big words and speaking in ways to sound smart in front of everyone. This is even a challenge for many native English speakers. So imagine what burden it puts on international students that English is not even their first language. So all of this just makes international students to look not as smart as their native English speakers classmates, and they usually seem to talk simple and straightforward. And this is something that some individuals in academia and like as a system also they cannot easily accept it. So approaching international students who are coming from very diverse backgrounds with a Western point of view and not validating their cultural identity, it just leads to the students' social withdrawal due to the lack of sense of belonging and lack of confidence in fitting to this new location and atmosphere. So this is also the picture of this. This is a welcoming sign at the entrance of the Pullman City. And whenever I look at it and I see like it says welcome in Farsi, I feel like, oh God, that's beautiful. However, there are some stuff that we can do just to reduce this language barrier. And I just have some of them here. Using active learning methods such as a multicultural group work can build like connections, but it also require like careful facilitation. And we also should emphasize on incorporating the scholarly dimension of diversity into the curriculum. So just using some methods randomly in our classrooms may not result in what we want. So we need to like have that diversity lens in our curriculum to use it. Which includes like addressing differences in language proficiency and knowledge structures. For example, like I was reading this paper that like faculty at Monash University modified their teaching materials to include more visual aids and clear examples, and recognizing that culturally and linguistically diverse international students require some alternative learning methods. And so, like having a slower speech, yeah. And also, sorry, I missed the point here, also doing some faculty training, in encouraging faculties to adopt identity-sensitive teaching methods, right, rather than like universalist approaches. This includes like understanding the unique challenges faced by international students and tailoring instruction accordingly. For example, using slower speech, provide assignment models that helps like non-native speakers to accommodate the class better. The other challenge faced by international students is isolation. So they often experience isolation due to cultural and linguistic barriers, limited social connections, and difficulty accessing support systems. It just adds to it. So these challenges also can undermine their sense of community and their academic engagement. So a special proximity, usually it does not guarantee the meaningful interactions that we need between domestic and international students. It is usually believed that having the domestic students and international students in the same class is just enough to help the students having a meaningful relationship. yeah, that helps. That's good, but it's not enough. Like because various studies shown that interactions between domestic and international students rarely result in cross-cultural friendships within higher education setting. So this disconnection between international students and host communities is often attributed to the failure of international students. And the other thing that I also mentioned earlier is universities usually see international students as lacking, unfortunately, like lacking knowledge, language, or not being cultured. However, as Ryan argues, international students are not simply the problems in need of a solution, but by universities administrators, but rather they can provide an opportunity for the co-construction of new knowledge and more collaborative ways of working and thinking. So we need to just change that point of view. Yeah, so also universities, unfortunately, they have this deficit models that that they should change, and they can more focus on the strength and contribution that international students are bringing onto our campuses. And the other strategy is like interventions such as discussion-based classrooms really helps, and intercultural workshops and team-based projects. They create opportunities for meaningful interactions. I was also reading this article that, if I remember it, yeah, they had this event called the Mission Impossible, and it was at the University of Victoria, that they required teams to include both domestic and international students by framing international students as experts on their home cultures. And so this even kind of shifted power dynamics and enhanced collaboration. Okay, so I I mentioned that the intersectionality of international students is usually overlooked. And last semester, I was reading Said Atron's book on queer Palestinian and the Empire of Critic. It's an amazing book, so I suggest you all, if you haven't read it, please do. So I came to this passage, and I was just like, oh my God, that does relate to what I want to talk today. So I'm just going to read through the passage and say more after that. Atron says a type of epistemic coercion attends the process of turning the struggles of people under colonial domination into objects of analysis and critique in service of Western theoretical frameworks. Such frameworks participate in the empire of critique, a discursive apparatus that, without invitation, without consent, and often without giving locals an opportunity to respond, subjects people around the world to its gaze, analysis, expertise, and critic. Like he says it very, very beautiful. And so that's why I brought it here. So this is from chapter 5 of his book, Queer Palestinian and the Empire of Critic. And he talks about the notion of Western academia and how the West approaches queer Palestinians. This idea, I think it relates because this idea reflects how Western academia often approaches international students, like as just the same, instead of genuinely engaging with their experiences and their perspectives and their struggles. So their struggles are sometimes just analyzed, and they are analyzed through a Western-centric framework. And this can overshadow the unique insights and voices of international students, and treating them more as subjects to be studied rather than active contributors to academic discourse. And it reinforces a power imbalance, where the realities are interpreted and critiqued without their full participation or consent. So just to just to give an example to make it more clear, I'm gonna give a personal example here. Before I was coming to the US and being here, I knew that what are some stereotypes about Iranians in the United States. So I was already kind of felt that I am identified by the West and by the United States, even without being there ever. And like I knew that like people say that Iranians are like this, Iranians are like that. And I was just like, I'm not like that. But there was this new identity created before me even existing, like in the United States. So yeah, I think that Atron says it very good. Okay, I'm gonna move to the next slide. So just talking in more detail about like what are some of those intersectionality that we are talking about, and what are those overlooked intersectionality of international students. So the first thing that I really wanted to say is that international students are not monolithic, yet they are often generalized based on their appearance, their language, or the region that they're coming from. For instance, phrases like all these Iranians talk like this, or they must be Muslims because they're coming from Iran, or they're Iranian, so they must be Arabs. It just reflect stereotypes rooted in a very narrow Western perspective. So these assumptions overlook the diversity and individuality of international students. Just because some students come from the same region and may share a language, even the same language, does not mean they come from the same culture. For instance, among Iranians, it is very common for us to ask one another that, which state are you from? Because this question usually highlights significant differences like in language and culture, and even the religion that they practice, like within the country. So yeah, diversity even exists among people from the same region. However, this does not mean that we should overlook the importance of acknowledging the intersectionality of international students. So each international student has a unique and layered identity that must be considered when engaging with them. For instance, international students who are people of color often have experiences that differ significantly from those who are white and have lighter skin tones. And similarly, students with disabilities, those belonging to religious minorities or those with non-binary sexual orientations, they usually face additional layers of challenges and biases. So these intersecting identities shape their experiences and must be taken into account to create truly inclusive environments. So, since I'm talking about intersectionality, I also want to finish my talk with, as Crenshaw says, the intersectional experience is more than just racism and sexism combined, and intersectionality is a way to see how different types of inequality interact and worsen each other. So, yeah. Any questions so far? Any thoughts? Okay, I'm gonna
I'm
give,
just
yeah.
one comment, and I really appreciate the emphasis on understanding the intersectionality of identity here. And I was wondering if you had any comments about looking into different abilities and students that come in with that might need accommodations, and how that affects the way that faculty see and other students see their international peers with ability differences.
Yes, definitely. So I just quickly mentioned it in my talk that, like, yes, we're gonna get, like, maybe we get a students that international students that they have disability, so it just adds another layer to their identity, and that's gonna just make it more difficult and more challenging for them to adapt with the new like situation, new condition that they are into. So I would say that being aware of the needs of our students, whether they are international students or not, and sometimes students they cannot even like communicate like what they need. So I would say, as colleagues, friends, or like instructors, we should be the people who approach to these students and just make sure and ask them what they need and how we can help them. Thank you. So I'm gonna stop talking, and I'm just gonna give the mic to Zuli.
Okay, so I want to look at how do we support international students. Like Zara has talked about, we are not a monolith. We are all different. So the first strategy I came across was educate yourself about cultural differences. Learn about the cultures, traditions, and values of the international students that you interact with. And that will kind of help you to avoid stereotypes, and it fosters some kind of a mutual respect. And if some of the international students happen to be your friends, it kind of brings the two of you closer. So know the differences, show genuine interest in their perspectives and interests. Like Angel was sharing in my group that I taught him how to say hi in Swahili, and I really get excited every time he meets me and he says hi in my language. So I feel like that's a nice way of interacting with one another, show genuine interest. Like I feel like he showed genuine interest in my culture and my language, and that's why I ended up teaching him that language. Next, please. Avoid assumptions. I think we tend to do this a lot. And like Zara mentioned, that we are all different, even if we come from the same country, sometimes every individual is different. So before you jump into conclusions that Iranians are like this, before you jump into conclusions Kenyans are like this, I'm not really the ambassador of my country. It's just one person in my own personality. So let's treat individuals as their own, recognizing that their culture or background doesn't really define who they are. Create opportunities for international students to contribute in group settings, ensuring that they feel valued and included. This is something I've experienced in my classes, like the classes that I've taken. I realized that there's some instructors or professors who, like, most of the time, I'm usually like the quiet student in class sometimes. It depends with how I relate with the instructor or the professor. And sometimes I see some of the professors will be like, Zuli, what do you think about this? Because they know some of us, we need that extra push. And it usually feels really good when someone sees you for you and they validate your experience. When you share something, even if it's so different, they validate it. Next slide, please. I think this is just a repetition of some of the things that we've been talking about. Attending events, celebrating cultural diversity through events, discussions like the ones you've attended today, activities that allow international students to share their heritage. And I know, like, in elementary schools in Pullman, we usually have like an international day or a multicultural day where we get to share our different cultures, examine unconscious biases or assumptions. And it's very sad that as international students, we feel this. Sometimes we feel like people have unconscious biases and sometimes they come out. I was talking to a friend, I don't want to mention their name, and they told me that they were at Walmart and they were trying to use the self-checkout and they were struggling to figure out, or something was not working. And then someone just said, these people from this country, they never figure out how to do something. So let's examine our unconscious biasness when we're interacting with other people. You can even, if you can even talk to your peers or your colleagues so that they can help you see what you did or what you said wasn't aligning to the inclusive practices that you tend to preach. So I think there was this question in the question, the prompts that we had, the questions, and was about students who cannot speak English and others, they're struggling. So one of the other things you can do to help them is you can direct them into international students resources. For example, if they don't speak English, they can have language assistance. I think in the WSU campus, we have language tables. You can also direct them to the writing center if they're struggling with writing. We also have cultural orientation programs. If they need academic support, if like they need a tutor, some of the students don't know that you can get tutors. Like in my culture, asking for help, like getting a tutor is seen like you're dumb or something. We don't have that culture of asking for help. Show them it's okay to ask for help. Offer practical solutions to their problems. Empathy is the main one. Understand, like, you remember the video that we watched at the beginning, that we have to put away everything about ourselves. We have to check them out at the airport when we are driving here. So it's hard to adjust into a new environment, and sometimes it takes time and effort. So be a friend. Find out how, like, if you have this new student in your class, they are from a different country, and just find out how they're doing, how are they adjusting. Do they have accommodation? Do they need help? Maybe there are some things they are struggling with, you can help. So have that kind of genuine care, that kind of wanting to help. Next slide, please. So there's something we call an international students' sense of belonging. And we have Allen, who says that who defines belonging as the feeling of security and support when there's a sense of acceptance, inclusion, and identity for a member of a certain group. It is when an individual can bring their authentic self, when students feel like they don't belong, their performance, their motivation, their tenacity, degree of achievement, and their personal lives suffer. For international students, the sense of belonging is not one size fits all. Just because something worked for Zara, it doesn't mean the same thing will work for me. So it's not one size fits all. Sometimes maybe I'm struggling with something like, for example, I'm a Black woman. I'm struggling with accepting the fact that in Kenya, I never felt like a Black woman. I felt like I was just this girl, the daughter of my dad. But I come to US and I realize, shoot, I am Black. And so I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling to understand how do I fit into this culture where I feel like an outsider already. There's the element, the fact, the intersectionality, the fact that you're not only, I'm a Black woman, I'm Kenyan, I have an accent, I am a mother. It's hard to be an international school student and to be a parent at the same time. So those are some of the things we are saying that the empathy when you're working with us, it's the things that you might think they're easy. I'll give another example too. I was talking to a friend and they were telling me that sometimes we hustle for even the small jobs that pay very little. And for the domestics, they can't understand, why would you waste your time to just get paid $200 for doing such a lot of work? The reason we do it is because that's the only money coming in. So sometimes let's have that empathy. Let's not assume just because you have everything doesn't mean everyone has the same things. So universities can take several actionable steps to implement inclusion strategies and foster a sense of belonging for all members. And I came up with a list of some of the things that WSU can do, but I will want to hear some of the things that you think, Sarah, just pause a little. I want to hear what are some of the things that you think the university is doing to make sure that international students feel like they belong. They don't feel like they're outsiders. They don't feel like they have to check part of themselves when they come to school. So, anyone who would like to share? Say something.
Sure, I can start. I know it's very helpful to like all the information that you provided is very, very useful. But I think it's very useful to meet with students individually, right? So it's not a class activity. Everybody share your culture, right? And so with especially with graduate students, and it's different being not on the Pullman campus. I do that as a strategy to get to know the student outside of the classroom, right? And try to get to know their needs and expectations before I unload with, well, what's bothering you, right? So it's like, hey, how can we support you? And then in those conversations, and it usually takes 2 or 3 times before students will say, oh, it's really hard because whatever. And then I also encourage my other students to build those relationships and help scaffold that acclimation into their coursework. Even if a lot of times I don't have the students in my own classes. And so I find out who's in the courses, and those who I know, I'm like, hey, be aware of this. Because it is all about developing that relationship so that you feel comfortable and, disclosing those kind of things. So, but yeah, those are just little things that I've done with international students from cultural contexts that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, I really appreciate that because sometimes we suffer in silence and we don't want to talk about it. So when we find someone who's willing to talk to us, you might be surprised. And sometimes it's something you can fix. It's something so small in your eyes, but we are struggling with it. So we appreciate opening those doors, having those open door policies where you're talking to us, you want to know, genuinely care about our interests and the things that are bothering us. Because as students, we sometimes, I don't know, this has happened to me in my classes. There was a time I was having an issue with a student, and then I talked to them, and then they explained to me what was going on. And then that's when it hits me that I was seeing them as a student. I forgot to see them as a human being. Like
The
they have
person.
other needs. And
Yeah.
that's very important. Anything else we're doing? A strategy?
Yeah, and we've got, other faculty in here, that have a lot of experience with this too. I don't know, Unru or Michael, what are some things that you've done that have been successful?
I invite international students to offer about their experiences, perspectives from their country. I always preface it that it's optional, not that they're required to say something, but to show that I'm interested, and that they're welcome to comment. And I found that they appreciate that, and they follow through and they do comment, and it helps to get their participation rolling and continuing throughout the semester. One thing I think the university could do more generally is there's generally a lack of sharing of information. I find just generally about things. We're often left wondering, or perhaps certain things are discussed in certain groups like Faculty Senate, but the information often isn't shared more widely. So early on in the semester, or in different ways during each semester, um, I don't know if it's through email or not, or whatever means, but what is the demographic mix of our campus? Or are there students who'd be willing to be featured about where they're from and what their experience is? And I don't know, just a more general building of knowledge and awareness about international students, I think would help, because when it's not mentioned, it kind of becomes silenced in a indirect, not necessarily intentional, but that's kind of how I feel about it. So those would be my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your insight. I feel like it's very important. Like I said, you have to know the students that you have in your classes, the cultures they come from. But if you don't have this information beforehand, you can't prepare. So I think maybe our institutions need to do better at that. Zara,
Mhm.
please, would you mind sharing the slides? Okay, so so we feel like maybe we can strengthen the International Students Office, maybe make it more accessible. Next, please. Recruitment and retention. I don't know. I feel like this is something maybe that needs to be done more. I know Eric might have left, but I think that's something. How are we going to recruit and retain students from other places? Maybe that's something maybe the institution can work on. Inclusive campus culture, like having a workshop like the one that we have today, talking about faculties and staff trying to address the unconscious biases, microaggressions, and systemic inequality. You'll be surprised that I've been teaching here for the last 2 years. And last semester, I had a student in my class who came to report to me that she's been experiencing microaggression in the program. So these things happen. People just are scared to talk about them. But if we have those open door policies, people can be talking about them. They can name them when they happen. Having integrative, diverse perspectives and contributions from historically marginalized groups in our course content. Yeah, having like the kind of readership, what kind of books are we picking for students to read? Are they only from a certain kind of demographics? Are we only picking text or books from a certain kind of readership? Are we having minority writers providing text for our class coursework? And also maybe things like UDL and being culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy strategies. This is basically my area of expertise. Being culturally responsive. You can't be culturally responsive if you don't know the students you're dealing with, if you don't know some of the cultures that you're dealing with, because you want to bridge the gap between what they know and what you're teaching them. And if you don't know what they know, there's no way you're going to bridge that gap. Next slide. Physical spaces. I know right now in College of Ed, we are going to have an international student what is it? Like a room for international students. I'm so stoked about that. Having campus support, like I talked about tutoring, I talked about conversation groups, especially when they're struggling with languages. Accountability, especially reporting discrimination, harassments, bias incidents, to make sure that the campus is being fair and transparent about such things. Like maybe they can send surveys to ask us, how do we feel about the climate? How do we feel? Do we feel like we're being included? And see what they can do to make it better. Next, please. Maybe collaborate with local organizations. I don't know, like what we did with Pullman School District. We worked together, College of Ed with the Pullman School District. Maybe we can have more of such things. Next. Financial and emotional support, expand scholarships. This is hard, especially for international students. We have a very limited pool of financial support. There are scholarships that we are not qualified for. And so maybe if the university can expand on the pool where international students can apply for such, that would really, really be great. Mental health resources. We go through homesick. Trust me, like Christmas time is usually the hardest time for me because I miss home. And there's nothing that can be done. So I don't know, maybe some of you can open doors for some of us on Christmas so that we have an American family here. It's hard. Homesickness is something that most international students struggle with. So how can we support our students mentally as a whole? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Soleil. I'm not sure if yeah, Eric is back. That's great.
My computer crashed. Has never happened, but nonetheless, I am back.
Yeah, good. That's technology. So the next thing that we would like to do and kind of do the transition to a Q&A session and see like if anyone has any questions, even though not necessarily questions, if you want to share anything, comment on anything, and also like maybe like talking about like the scenarios that we talked at the beginning of the session, like did any of your perspective changed or not?
Well, I can get the ball rolling. Like I've got 3 pages of notes and questions. Like, this has just been fascinating, and I appreciate all the insight. I while I want to ask all these questions, one of my dear colleagues, on my campus, Unru, she's lived this and then come back to, be a predominant, leader in her field and a faculty member and all this. So Unru, what, if you don't mind sharing, like, how did you navigate all of this at different institutions like ASU and UNLV and now a faculty member and you're tenured, and what helped or what were some strategies or mechanisms of support that helped you succeed? Right? And how did you overcome some of these challenges that have been brought up?
Yeah, I think I'll start with some small things that I happen to think through the scenario you guys provided, because it's really good questions to, like for also me to see what are some related experience that I have ever had, So as what Eric said, sorry, I really want to change my background a little bit, because typically when I do my self-introduction, I share my virtual background from Taiwan. So yeah,
The
so I think
tower, I love it. Yes.
the Taipei 101 building. Yeah. So I feel like there are some, I would start from some small things that I think are really helpful. They are not necessarily contribute to the sense belonging yet, but it's just, I feel in some way that knowing those things that really help me a lot as the international student, for example, like, and also like from my experience with some of the international students I had, like, for example, like one of the scenario you guys give is about like struggling with like heavy readings, and then I have students come to me and say like, I really struggle with readings because once I wait semester start, I got syllabus, I know what book to purchase, and then it's already too late because I already have accumulate readings. And then I was just like, hey, do you know that bookstore already posts all the textbook even before the semester start? But it sounds like not every student's aware of that, and I couldn't remember how I know that. I might just get aware of it like at some point of my study, but I just find something like small things that we didn't think of really help to me. Like for example, like some of the resource I think you guys mentioned are really helpful. For example, those like writing center. I do use writing center a lot when I was at ASU, because I feel like that's free resource to me, and then I can just always go to. But I think the one thing that I was a bit different from other international students, because like I was able to go to Oregon State University for 1 year English Language Institute. So I feel that's kind of built up some of the knowledge I have. For example, like I would know there's writing center available at library or such. Different university have its available in different place, but those resources are really helpful. I don't think it's only helpful for international students, but also like local students as well. But we just not sometimes always think about that. And so I would echo what like Eric or Michael already said, and also like from the presentation that you can always approach to the students and ask them like what do you think we can support you better, or like what challenges you have like faced that we wasn't aware. Yeah, because those are things. And other things that I feel like if the school have the international student, not international student office, it's the international student organization. For example, at ASU, we had a very strong international student organization, and they will plan a lot of different activities. They have like English conversations. They have Bible study. I don't attend like Bible study because it's just like a different time, conflict, but mostly I attend their English conversation, like conversant. And then they schedule travels during break. So, you have something to do during break, so you don't I definitely feel like, I can feel like homesick, like during break, or not necessarily during Christmas break. I feel most homesick around like the Lunar New Year time, because that's the time, like, yeah, so you can have students have different time for homesick. So, and I also tell my group, I don't know if necessarily true for every single international student. It's like I feel things put in writing really help me, because like most of international student, especially like college or master or doctoral program, because when they come to the States to study, they need to pass the TOEFL score. There's a requirement for English level. So I feel like things, if you put in writing, then I have this small tool that I show my student. They can show my students before, and also like the small group that we had earlier in breakout room. This is my small dictionary. So it's like, if I don't have internet nowadays, internet is so convenient, but I always have this with me. So if I don't understand something that I put in writing, I can see and I can immediately, of course, it's not always translate well, but I feel it's just like, something that I say to my other group member, that I feel sometimes if things put in writing, even though I don't understand at that moment, but I can always go back and read. For example, the syllabus really helps me, like when I was an international student, I read every single syllabus for sure from top to down. So unfortunately at that time, now my instructor hide the $100 in the cabinet, or I was like, I will be the one find the $100, like because I see some of the instructor, they say they will put at the bottom of the syllabus saying like, I hide $100 in this locker or something like that. I was like, damn, nobody of my, now my instructor do that, or I will find it. But anyway, so it's just some of my experience about, like how some small things really help me. And then, Thanksgiving dinner might be help, invite your international student and friends to, if you are, like, then for them to experience some of the Western or American, like experience. That would be really nice. Unfortunately, none of my international student, like I have a couple like at VIE, they are all located in Pullman, so it's really, like sometimes it's really hard for them to. And I personally, before, like I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving by myself, so sometimes it could be hard. So, but I feel like that's a good experience for international students, just to experience what's going on in the States. Yeah, so that's just some of my experience and thoughts.
Well, what's impressive, I remember going through my doctoral program, I speak English, and I had to look up tons of things too. So there's that academic discourse it was mentioned, I forget who mentioned it, about it excludes, right? It's meant to exclude, and it's meant to exclude a lot of people, even if you speak English. And so that there's that other layer, like you're trying to translate I forget the slide with the epistemic conflicts of interculturality. Like the English speakers have a tough time with that. So being aware of how to do that. And I love your translator. I had the same one with, studying in different countries too. That's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, language and culture are intertwined. And to the suggestions given were fantastic. Anyway, I could keep going. I want to open it up for other questions, or I mean, we have other international students or maybe faculty here. What experiences resonate with you?
I can go. I was also thinking about especially the language, um, the language that instructors use or the professors use. Sometimes you're talking about, this is an example I usually give to my students. I tell them, what do you think about when you think about breakfast? And most of them will talk about coffee. Some of them will talk about bagels. They talk about so many interesting things, sausage, eggs, and stuff like that. And then I tell them, guess what I think about when I hear breakfast? When I think about breakfast, I think about arrowroots. I think about sweet potatoes. I think about tea. And they're like, and we're talking about same thing, but completely different.
Different.
Yeah. And that's also the weightness, or the weighty value of language. Sometimes you lock us out with the language you use, the idioms you use, the colloquial expressions you use, the acronyms. Damn, acronyms that we use, they lock us out. So you can be having a very simple conversation in class. You're talking about things, and Zuli is struggling to understand what was that acronym again. And I'm an overthinker. I'll be fixated trying to understand what was that thing that we were talking about. I just one thing and then it locks us out. So maybe the kind of language we use when we are teaching students, especially when we have international students, just use simple language. Avoid using acronyms, idioms, like yeah, especially idiomatic expressions. You can just say something. I don't know which one. Someone said, "Is it pulling a leg or something like this?" And I was like,
Pulling, you're like joking. Yeah.
"Yes, are you pulling?" Oh, there was also another one. Someone told me, and then they were like, "Bama." I was like, "What?" So the kind of language we are so used to it is something so natural, but sometimes for international students, we are like, "So what is that? What do you mean?" Yeah. Mhm.
If you
Fantastic.
don't mind, I had the experience with that. When I was a master, I still remember it's my very first master class that we talk about. So it's multicultural education, special education. Of course, I probably should have figured out, but I remember the instructor posed a slide and then talking about, hey, what's your experience working with COD population? And I was look at that and I was just so nervous because they are going around to answer the question about what's your experience with COD population. And then fortunately I wasn't the first one because I look at COD and I was like, I don't know what it means at all. I was like, does she mention earlier? Or it's just pop up on the slide, And then from hearing other people's conversation, I kind of figure out it's probably about like, people from the culture different from mine, which is like, culturally, linguistically diverse. But I couldn't figure it out because it's like the first class and I look at it, I was just like, oh no. And I was just like so nervous. And I kind of just use the context that when I listen to others and then I guess, and then fortunately it wasn't like off, but I just really remember like, the first day. I couldn't like, when you use abbreviation, it's really hard without, any like I feel like even if you talk about it, but hopefully, on the slides you still present it. Even though APA guide is saying like, oh, you only need to say once, but I feel like I either missed. But so I still remember that because one of my very first class I had in the States. So
Yeah, and I just wanted to quickly add to that also about the cultural context. I think we all kind of had the same experience, whether we are international student, we are a student or not. Like you just run into your friends and they're talking about something, and you're just like, give me some context. Like, even though they're talking in your own language, but you don't know what they're talking. Like you do know the words, you know the language, but you don't understand it because you don't have the context of the talk. So I always give this example in my classes that, yeah, you need to give context to your students before like just talking to them about anything. And when I arrived here for my first class, I remember that my English is good. Like I'm not perfect or whatever, but my English is good, and I used to teach like English back in Iran. And my first class, I was just like, oh my God, they are talking in English. I know this is English and I know the meaning of each word individually, but I have no idea what they're talking about because I didn't have the cultural, political context of like the country, the Pullman city, the university, that class and that conversation. But yeah, like I sometimes like I sometimes hear like some of my friends talking about like, oh yeah, like we went to this country, and can you imagine being in a country that they don't speak your language? I'm just like, oh yeah, I know that feeling. I totally know that. So it's usually not a concept for English speakers because they usually go everywhere and everyone just speaks English. So yeah.
What I appreciate about that, like, so I'm fortunate that I've been given permission to teach 3 of our courses in Spanish. On our campus, we have a lot of Spanish speaking students, right? And even like last night, the students it was the 3:30, the diversity and equity class, and the students thought it was so funny because I didn't know they were talking about this certain group, and students are younger. I'm old. They're talking about this. I even forget the word now, but I had no idea, and they thought it was the funniest thing. I had no idea that they were using a term that I didn't know, and it was about the way guys cut their hair or something. And it was non-academic. And then as we progressed through, we were talking about phenotypes and genotypes, and then I didn't know how to say DNA in Spanish other than saying the letters, and the acronyms represented differently, but they didn't know either. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay not to know. Here's how we got to look it up and figure out how to say it. And so those things cause a lot of anxiety sometimes. I'm in a position of power being an instructor. It's like, but as a student, when you don't know that, it can be very intimidating. And I think that, that's just one piece. Graduate students often then are instructors in classes. And then you've got English speaking students expecting you to know everything. And that's another layer of anxiety that happens. But so we're running into the time limit. I just want to say thank you so much. I still have tons of questions. Might have to set up a Zoom with you too. Outside of this to ask, but I really appreciate the points that were brought up, and this is great. I hope you keep doing these presentations and communicate this with your students and professors and staff too. Staff is another, and it was mentioned through library folks or the resource assistance folks, and it's okay to let us know that you don't know what that means and ask for help, but we need to let you know it's okay to ask for help. And I think that was powerful, Suli. So with that, we're going to, conclude this. I'm going to make sure that the recording's posted. I'll circulate this, and hopefully folks that couldn't make it tonight, will be able to watch this and glean as much as we all did from it. So appreciate everybody attending. And with that, we'll say good night. And Suli and Zara, if you could hang out for a minute, then that's great. So thank you, everybody. It's been fantastic.
Thank you, actually. Thank you, Eric, and all equity committee people that they helped us with this and make this happen. We really appreciate it. Yeah, and I think I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, but I think Michael wanted to say something, and I kind of caught through him. I'm not sure if
Nope.
no, okay.
Michael's
Just-
always got plenty to say, so don't worry. You can always
Yeah.
follow up with him.
Right.
Actually, we had a very good breakout room discussions. So
Yes.
thank you for the insights.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.